Hi, everyone. My name is Maxi Lichtenberg. I'm a historian and scholar, and I love to study mysticism and ancient spirituality and how this can apply to our lives nowadays. So I'm here with beautiful my sister, my friend Claire Sierra, who wrote The Magdalene Path. And we're here today to talk about Mary Magdalene. And just warm welcome to you, Claire, and
Thank you,
diving a
Maxie.
little bit into the book. So
So good to be
happy
here
to have
with
you.
you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
In honor of opening this space, I'm just going to light our beautiful candle.
Oh, that's lovely.
Just welcome everyone who's watching, anybody who needs this now. Just welcoming in sacred space. Enjoy. Oh, beautiful. There we go.
Yeah. Nice.
From my heart to yours. So welcome, Claire. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So good to be here with you. I'm so excited to have this conversation
Yeah.
because you're a bright light and a brilliant star, so of your own. So I'm curious to see what will emerge through our discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to talk today about Mary Magdalene, the archetype of Mary Magdalene and how she serves us today, but also the real woman of Mary Magdalene. And throughout the years that I've had your book, I keep referring back to it, and I find something new in it, a new wisdom, a new piece of juicy information that really just inspires me, and that really helps me on my Grail quest. So my Grail quest is anything that can bring me to a deeper understanding of what is the Holy Grail, what is divine and wisdom. Let's see if we can get the audio back. All
Yeah,
right.
you were frozen just for a second, so I didn't know if that was on my side. I figured I'd close my video for a second and I'll bring it back.
Right. That's fine. Let's see if this works.
Yeah.
So great. I mean, we have so many energies here with us today. I love it. Yeah, so I was just talking about my Holy Grail quest. What I'd like to say is anything of my journey, of whether it's with Grail, Mary Magdalene, the Cathars, what is the Holy Grail, Montserrat, all of that, the Templars, all of that is my own Grail quest. So what that means is entirely up to anyone's interpretation, but for me is finding a deeper understanding into the spiritual world, into the ethereal, into the deep feminine mysteries. And I'd like to start by actually reading something from your book, something that has come through Mary Magdalene to you, through you. And it says here, I'm an alive, vibrant woman full of power. Look but don't touch, and know you cannot take any. This is my energy to own, embody, and share at will. I choose when, where, and with whom I express that energy. And I just love that so much. I love that so much.
She's a very potent energy for sure. When I started getting hints quite a long time ago about the divine feminine and the awakening of the divine feminine, I had long had a very also scholarly interest in Mary Magdalene. And so when I started getting messages through my own spiritual practice about the awakening of the divine feminine, and my writing a book about that and about telling the untold story, or the herstory, her untold herstory, initially I have to say I resisted that for a long time. And I think for many reasons. One is the conditions in my life were not particularly ripe to receive it. I also now think that the conditions in the world were not ready to receive it. We're in a very different time now than we were in the late 80s or the 90s or even the early 2000s. And so once I did finally surrender to the idea, I mean, after all, I was praying for guidance about my true path, and I kept getting this message, and then I just kept saying, no, 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 not, but not that. That sounds too hard. That sounds too crazy. That sounds too fill in the blank. And, you know, I wonder how true that is for many women, that we get inklings of a direction we're meant to go, and then we quickly line up all the reasons that that's not going to conveniently fit into the plan for our life. And so when I did eventually, you know, sort of surrender to it, what started to come through was very beautiful and frankly far different than anything that I really imagined. I had kind of a sketch of the areas, but I would never know when I would sit down in meditation. I would open my computer, kind of get a document ready and meditate for a while, and I could feel her energy come in, and I could feel her starting to speak to me. And then I would just basically like taking dictation or like having a two-way conversation, which is how I ended up writing it out in the book, in the Magdalene Path book. And she's a potent force. She's a potent force for our time. So there are many women who are awakening to the divine feminine, and there are many ways to connect with the divine feminine. By no means is Mary Magdalene the only way, but she is a representation, a historical representation that fits into a very dominant cultural story, mythological story and religious story, which is that of the path of Jesus, which is what became Christianity.
So what I loved in the Magdalene Path is, I mean, there's so many things that just really ignite and spark your interest when you were talking about the early Christianity and something called the Way. But before we maybe come back to that, let's maybe look at who was Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, that's always a great question. So Mary Magdalene, from what I've received, as well as what now there are other documents, ancient documents, the Nag Hammadi scrolls, the what are sometimes called the Gnostic Gospels. They didn't call themselves Gnostics. That's sort of a grouping that scholars have created. But the scrolls that were taken out of the Bible in about 429, I believe, there were quite a number of them, and they spoke to her power and her presence. So my understanding of her is that she was the partner and consort of Jesus, Yeshua, then Joseph, and that they were a couple. They were a married couple, and there are some historical things that lend to that, namely things like if Jesus was a teacher in that lineage at that time, it would have been extremely unusual for him to not be married. It would have been notable for him not to be married.
Yeah.
Things like that. And she was a priestess and a woman of high social ranking, you know, came from a wealthy family. So she was a woman of means, but also from a family that supported the esoteric or the mystical traditions. So were supportive of her in the path that was unfolding for her. None of that was really a surprise to any of them. All the people that were involved in this were very high-level spiritual adepts. Jesus, his mother certainly was also a priestess. Her mother was a priestess. Mary Magdalene, priestess, family, priests, priestesses. So none of this was like sort of, oh, all of a sudden we're in this big, you know, thing. They kind of knew what they were getting into. They didn't necessarily know what direction it would go in. The demise, the sort of the way things came apart so catastrophically. as none of us know. We're in a time right now of a lot of cultural change and significant social events happening. We don't know how these things are going to play out.
Yeah.
So she was a leader of her own, in her own right,
Yeah.
and was basically, at his death, was basically stripped of her lineage, of her leadership, and also because of the fact that it was dangerous at that time to be connected with this group, she left, and she was bearing a child. So all the more reason to leave and protect her and protect the child,
Mm-hmm.
which is also part of why what eventually became the Roman Church and then became the Roman Catholic Church. Why it went in that direction, because some people, she kind of left the picture, and there were others around who sort of culled and curated it in a certain direction, which was very political. We don't necessarily have to go into that today,
Right.
but very politically motivated as well as religious motivation.
Yeah. So that this certain there was a certain power struggle, and I know that she left after she actually Yeshua, to my understanding, asked her to do so, because also he knew what was coming, and
Sure.
this sadness and this despair of leaving with her unborn child and
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
And in a way, to me, she represents the bridge of a spiritual world and of spiritual gnosis, of ancient mystery school teachings, and in a world which was just as 3D as we have now, but even more dense and dangerous. And just to imagine how to walk like that, and how can you walk that path and embody spiritual presence in a world that was like that. It's not even that long ago. I mean, 2,000 years ago. So I like to
Yeah.
think about history in tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
So to
That's
me,
right.
it's not that long. It's yesterday. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So interesting when we look at the state of the world today and the shifts and almost these timeline shifts, what's happening, and what programming are you dictating and yourself to? Are you
Right.
staying in a dense consciousness in a dense world, or are you embracing starting a new world and bringing in principles of so much more higher light vibration and love and peace and harmony? And I think that's, even though we say, oh, 2,000 years ago, and that's the past, we can forget the years because it's so present. It's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Everybody in their own sense and in their own right can embody Yeshua, Mary, Magdalene, the archetypes and the principles, and then we have to make our own decisions, and we have to live in that essence of the way.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and she spoke throughout the book about the way, which was the shorter version. I mean, they called it the way of love and light. I don't know what they would have called it in Aramaic. There's probably one word
Yeah.
that would be very beautiful. So the way of love and light became cumbersome to say over and over, so she would call it the way. And I think it's really interesting because it was a very patriarchal time. Women were not allowed to be out and about on their own. Women were not allowed to be speaking to men. So she and Jesus, like Jesus in a way was the first feminist to me, first male feminist, because they were really walking a path as equal partners.
Yeah.
And yet because of the time, of course, he was leading, and she was in a bit more of a supportive or side role. But there were other women that were traveling with them, and that was completely radical. And of course, we look at things through our lensing of today. We don't really see that as being that radical or that uncommon. And yet at the same time, we're not living in a world where women are completely equal, where women are completely safe to be traveling on our own in places. There's more of that freedom today, at least in the United States, where I live in Oregon. And yet there's still concerns. Am I safe going there? Is it okay? Can I do that? So we like to think that we're so much further ahead. And to your point about it's not that long ago, yeah, we like to think that we're so much more evolved, and in some ways we haven't come that far. So I think that's also part of what she brings to us. Is, I mean, one of the important pieces about, there are so many women that are wanting to awaken the divine feminine. They're in themselves. We really sense that the way we've been doing it isn't really working. Our culture is a very hyper masculine. We are really, and women, in order to be successful, have sourced our power through man mode, going into man mode. And that's what's allowed us, those of us who have achieved certain levels of success, to do so. You know, getting through college, university, high school, jobs, applying for jobs, any of that stuff, it's very much those are very masculine structures. And so, and that's gotten us to a certain place in terms of equality and things like that, but it can't take us all the way, because it's not our true essence of being. It's not our innate, it's not our innate sort of home essence, which is why I call it feminine soul. The divine feminine to me is so embodied and so soul based. I think a lot of women are recognizing that the solution to this feeling of feeling so overwhelmed or so exhausted or so like life is just too busy is to reconnect with a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
And she's a model of doing that, because she's a person who has lived. And also because we see the effect of her absence. I mean, part of why we're living the world we're in now as is like sort of the down lineage, if you will, of the patriarchy and the way Christianity got developed. Regardless of whether anybody who's watching this is Christian or not, the Christian mindset has shaped culture and society for thousands of years, and is still woven in to cultures today, very much so. Even if they're not particularly religious, that sort of Christian mindset is very
your
woven.
moral integrity, right? And also with the family and what we do, what we don't do, but also what we say and we don't say, and what we say at home but we don't say outside of the home. That can also
True. And in the United States, there's a lot of moralizing around Christianity and choices and politics and all that. Again, we don't need to get into that today, but that's very alive. So when Mary Magdalene, so there were two, and one of them got removed, we had this divine pair of feminine and masculine that women and men could each sort of pair to or template or mirror. And one of them gets removed, and we get replaced with a son and a father.
Yeah.
And we don't have the daughter and the mother. And so as a result, we have this whole, very masculine lineage that has come through in our life today. So that's one of the reasons why I think she's important, because we've been living a lie about what Christianity really is and what it was meant to be. And I mean, that's a strong statement, and it's probably not very popular. Could be not very popular with some, but that's my interpretation of it. We are not living the truth as it was meant to be lived.
Right. This reminds me of the teachings of the Way, and this reminds me, of course, of the Cathars, and who are said to be a religious sect. But I don't like to use that word. I just like to, look at that for what it was, and a group of people in a community who believed in something such as the Way and these teachings of harmony and of peace and of healing, and kind of some very progressive models. It was a very progressive society where women were equal, races were equal, there was trade. It was very very new for the age, even if we were just, in the south of France or in the north of Italy or the north of Spain, yes. Catalonia, I mean, where I live, and you still feel that energy so strongly in the land. And when I'm meeting people, and you can feel that beautiful energy of the Cathars, and you see it everywhere. I mean, once you open your eyes to it, it's just there for you, and it's definitely a way of this original Christianity of what it was meant to, of community and of peace and of healing and of accessing the divine aspect within us, and even practicing to channel that, but not even from a spiritual perspective. It's just when there's a community of love and of peace and connection, wonders happen, magic happens, and that is where our true power is. And that is my desire also, that we really anchor these qualities back in ourselves and onto earth now in this time where we seem so polarized.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so for folks who don't know who the Cathars are, because I get that question a lot, Mary Magdalene was presumed to have after leaving what's now Israel, Palestine or Judea, went to Egypt, stayed there for a bit, birthed her child, and then traveled by boat to the south of France and landed in a place, my French pronunciation of things is terrible, so you can correct me, Sainte-Marie-de-la-Mer, which is near Marseille. And she lived there and she taught there. She lived, and that area is in Provence, and she lived in Provence for quite a long time, and perhaps came back at her death, because there's different different understandings of where she was. She also lived in the region called the Languedoc, which is in the south of France, just to the west of Provence. And so she was teaching there, and through time developed a following, and that following of folks practiced the way of love and light and the teachings of Jesus and Mary Magdalene as a sacred pair. And so that's who the Cathars became. The Cathars called themselves, would you say it, bonhomme?
Bonhommes, yeah.
Bonhommes?
Yeah.
And which would mean, is that like good people?
Good. It would be good men, but that could be a modernization of the language of French. I mean, in Occitan, it would have been something a little bit different, I believe.
Right,
or
exactly.
Good people, the good person. It wouldn't have been masculinized. It would have more been seen as gender neutral.
Exactly.
So,
that was what my take on it was too, Maxi. And that was one of the largest genocides that our world has known, and it's largely unknown. It was the Catholic Church against this sect of Christians, so Christians against Christians, and it was a huge political and religious bloodbath, basically. And you're right, the energy of the people, not so much the bloodbath of it, but just the knowledge of Mary Magdalene in the south of France is so strong. And I haven't been to northern Italy. I understand that lineage carried across into those parts too. So yes, they had some different beliefs according to what's written, but of course history is written by the winners, and the people who thought that they were heretics, they weren't going to necessarily write favorable things about them. So we don't really actually know the truth of who the Cathars were, which I kind of really like. And I think that there's some brilliant books that are being written now. I'm just about to read one called Heretic, which is about that area. And Kate Moss wrote a book called Labyrinth, which is
I've just finished that. Yeah.
I'm just reading that now too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And that really goes into the history. So if you're watching this and you're really interested in the history, that's a novel that's about that history. And it's intense. It's very intense.
Yeah. And Kate Moss is such a great writer and such a great person to look for if you're interested in getting more information, because instead of just going for what is nonfiction, what text should I look for, these are stories that are being told or retold even. And she's lived there for years in the south of France. She knows Carcassonne and Toulouse, and she knows so this is so beautiful. This is someone who's really studied the work and studied the people, and that is so beautiful how she portrays it and how it comes out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how far you are with the book. I don't want to spoil anything. But of course, there are so many secrets that are unfolding, and we have always these talks of like artifacts and scripture and what is the Holy Grail, and we have this kind of vision of media and pop culture. The Holy Grail is a cup, is and this is a whole other conversation. I mean, we could go into this for
Let's have that conversation. I think that would be fun about what's about the Holy Grail and what is the Holy Grail
Holy
really.
Grail. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of the chalice and what you've been saying about the absence of actually Mary Magdalene and the woman, like how it then really changed how society kind of progressed, that we became hyper masculine, in a sense, because there was no empowered patriarch and no empowered matriarch, but there was only a patriarch without the feminine is nothing. The same way that a woman without that energy, without that divine counterpart cannot be any higher than already hitting the ceiling there, and reach that spiritual enlightenment together. So the chalice itself, we can look at it as a cup of overflowing of enlightenment. If we want to look at it in a spiritual perspective, the cup and the chalice to drink from. It could also be what many scholars and many people, spiritualists, they would say it's Mary Magdalene's womb. It's her womb space. It's where she birthed the children of Yeshua.
Right.
And some say she had 1 child, 2 child, 7 children. So I think that's so beautiful. And then the practice of sangreal, which is working with the moon blood. I mean, we could go so far into this topic of what really is the Holy Grail. Is it the woman? Is it her womb? Is it the connection? Is it enlightenment? Or is it a cup? Or is it a physical artifact from 2,000 years ago that Yeshua drank from?
Right.
And I find that really, really interesting. I find that beautiful because when you also hear these stories, well, what if the Holy Grail is just that, are just stories being passed from mother to daughter and father to son of these ancient remembrances of our histories that have been woven into our DNA, and that we're trying to bring out and activate and live into in this incarnation, in this now. So there are many beautiful theories, legends around the Grail. And this is why I'm calling all of the work I'm doing on a personal spiritual level, I call it my Grail quest. Because it is a quest.
Yeah.
Am I expected to find something at the end of the road? I can't tell you. I don't need to tell you, because it's the way. It's the journey.
Yeah, it's the journey. That's right. Exactly. And to me, the Grail, like when you speak of it, it's like it's a chalice. And what's a chalice? But it's a container. And so who or what is the container for us? And I think like all good metaphors can be explored at so many different levels. But the idea of it being the idea of there being a container for us to weave our mystery into, for us to weave our magic, for us to bring our power into. So
it could be our body vessel, right?
Exactly. It's our body, right? The body is the chalice. For women, I think it is, absolutely. And so
I think this is fascinating, this conversation, because this is exactly what the Grail quest is. When we start with looking at Mary Magdalene, and we're looking at one person, we're looking at a real woman, we're looking at an archetype, but then at the same time, we're going to look at Cathars, we're looking at early Christianity, we're looking at sacred symbolism, we're looking at mysteries, we're looking at something I'd like to bring in is with all artifacts. I love to bring in a little bit of the Templars and Camino de Santiago. If anyone's heard of Camino, the roots of the stars, and there's so much beautiful wisdom almost hidden in plain sight. And maybe there's something I can share, a poem I wrote later about what's hidden in plain sight, about mystery.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's the whole region has so much magic and so much mystery.
Yeah.
Before we got on this conversation, started the recording here, we were talking about Montserrat in northern Spain, outside of Barcelona, which to me is this fairly unknown, but very potent power spot with an amazing Black Madonna and a lot of lore around what happened there or what's going on there. Yes, that is lovely. Yep, and I have a.
We have her everywhere.
And I'm
Once
wearing
in your eyes, you cannot unsee. I say that all the time. You know, once your Grail quest begins, yeah, she will come.
Exactly.
Continue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and one piece of the mystery is that the Book of Love, one of the books that the Cathars held, was held in Montserrat for a very long time, and was eventually surrendered.
I didn't know that.
Was eventually surrendered to the Roman Church by Saint Ignatius of Loyola, who started the Jesuits, which started at Montserrat, and he was allowed to start this new order because he had to get permission from the church. He was allowed to start this new order because he made a deal and gave the book in exchange for that. And what's interesting about the Jesuits is apparently, as I was told anyway, they don't answer to the Pope. They are while they're part of Christianity and Catholicism, they're not beholden to that lineage, which I think is very interesting, and which also sort of lends to the let's make a deal sort of history controversy of it. So it is a power spot, though. The Black Madonna that's there is
And just to give a little bit of backstory on that, it was said that in year 880, there were monks in the chapel and in the monastery, much smaller than it was today, or maybe even it was just a very small chapel, who were living there and who saw a light descending from the heavens down to the mountains. And curious, this man walked down and looked, okay, what is this? What was this light? And he felt guided to seek this out. And what he then found was the statue, as the legend goes, of the Black Madonna. And as time progressed, they wanted to move the statue to Manresa, which is the town very close to Montserrat. But she wouldn't be moved. She would budge. So actually, they built a cave around her. They just built a little chapel around her. And to this day, I swear to you, this is the most magical and spiritually potent place you can go. Once you go to Montserrat, there are beautiful walkways, and you can just be guided to wherever you want to go. But this chapel, if you're looking for a connection of the Divine Mother, this is the place where she was actually found. That is where the potent energy is. And yes, she is actually in the monastery. You can go there and touch, and that is fantastic. And I love sitting there in the big church, and I love looking at her and meditating. But it is a cave where there's only a replica to show where she was found. The cave is just magical, and it's really not populated. Not a lot of people go there. It's a little bit of a walk. Yeah,
I didn't even know that. Yeah, that's amazing. I just read a story, and I can't remember the name of it, but I just read a fictional story, and it was about that, and it was about how in that story, the children found it, and they didn't know what it was, and they and at one point they moved it, and it appeared in some of the children's rooms. So they would wake up and glowing in their room, and they hiding under the covers, and then then they go back, and so it's that thing of like, they tried to make a fancy thing, and it would move itself back, and so eventually they just went, okay, well, this is where she wants to be.
That's fascinating. You can't move her from the land, and I mean, it's just a beautiful experience when you go there. You'll
And
find exactly what
it's
you
a
need.
formidable, it's a formidable fortress. I mean, it's getting to it is, it's like kind of at the top of, or in the middle of this cliff, and the, you
Mhm.
know, where the cathedral is. It's not unlike St. Baum, actually, which
Mhm.
is where
Definitely.
Mary Magdalene was alleged to have lived for some time. And I think it was a mystery school. Actually, being at St. Baum, I thought felt like that was a mystery school where there were women, because it's just far too big for one woman. It's like a 30, 40, 50-foot cave. It's
Wow.
like,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
wouldn't want to live, if you lived in a cave, you wouldn't want to live in a cave that big. It'd be too cold. You'd want friends.
Yeah, you want, I mean, you want the sisterhood, you want to connect. And
Exactly.
I love that because there's, in the monastery, there's a library and that's closed off to visitors, but what it would give to
Ah,
explore.
yeah.
And it's interesting you mention mystery school. I mean, this could have well been also a place of worship and started as a small chapel beyond like Christianity and Catholic Church before they built a bigger monastery. And the monks are living there, and there's training going on for younger boys, and the choir, which is beautiful and very famous. I remember I was sitting in a sermon one time, and they were doing the service in Catalan, which I love listening to the language because it reminds me of Occitan, like the language of
Yeah.
ancient South of France, and
Hmm.
so and
Yeah,
then
it's probably very similar.
yeah, exactly. They sound very very similar. And at one point the priest goes Rosa Mystica, and my whole body just vibrated, and I was woo, I was awake. And yeah, it's a magical place for sure.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hmm. So I was wondering, I mean, you have some new work, I think, you were telling me about, and
Yeah,
rosary, if you want to share a little bit about
yeah.
that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So for me, all of this, and I think you and I really are very similar in this way. We love the deep sort of
Mm-hmm.
esoteric, historic study,
Yeah,
but yet we love the experiential, and we love the practical. Like
absolutely.
it's not about kind of up and out there, but it's about like how do we bring it here and make our lives and make the world around, not make, but allow the world around us to blossom in the way that it wants to be blossoming and unfolding. So for me, that's always been the thing. In fact, it was part of my resistance even to writing the book to begin with. It was like 2000 years ago, kind of, who cares about Mary Magdalene? Well, turns out I do care quite a
A
bit.
lot of people.
A lot of people care, and there's a lot of reasons to
Okay.
care, it turns out. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. um and yet it's like, and yet I want it to be relevant to our day and to our time. And I don't need to tell anybody that we're in a really we're in a time of great change, great unfolding. Um, Back in the spring, I was calling it the Great Reset, and now I feel like it's sort of we're in the great unraveling. It's not yet coming back together as much as some of us would like it to be coming back together.
Mm.
And and we have a great opportunity now for our world to become the world that we want it to be, the world that some people call the world that our hearts know is possible, to quote
Wow.
Charles Eisenstein, the world that our hearts know is possible,
Mm.
the beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. And so and I see lots of glimmers. I see lots of that. I've seen so much creativity, so much innovation, so much heart, and so much righting of wrongs, and bringing change to collectively address injustices that have been going on for far too long. And yet, in a lot of ways, we're still kind of hanging on to the old paradigm, like, oh, but like our
Absolutely.
money or our jobs or how
All this
skills.
fighting, right?
Yeah,
All this, the polarization, we
a lot
understand
of
it.
polarization. Yeah,
Yeah,
a
the
lot.
splitting of timelines, but the fight. And this is
Yeah,
something we need to look at. Uh,
yeah,
is this not your
absolutely.
brother? Is this not your sister? What are you doing? Yeah.
Right.
And we
Right.
agree to disagree. And can we move forward without, like you're saying, clinging on to
Yeah.
the past?
And to me, that's an expression of the deep toxic masculine, really, like that we've kind of taken that as far as it can go in terms of the masculine sort of embodying polarity and duality. And not to make the masculine wrong, because I think the masculine is beautiful in lots of ways. So I always like to say and always want to be clear about that. But yet we've taken it so far to one extreme that and this is that extreme, is that polarization, good, bad, right, wrong, black,
Mhm.
white, evil, good. We're
Right.
always looking for the enemy and
But I mean, not all of it. That's the chalice, right?
yeah, right, exactly. But we've been mired in this mindset of separation, which inspires us to create a lot of this duality. And so for me right now, so there's amazing things,
Mhm.
hopeful things happening, and there's challenging things that are brought to the fore that we can no longer ignore, and yet don't know what to do with. And so to me, practices that help us come back into alignment with our soul
Mhm.
essence, our soul truth, our spiritual truth, are not just important, but they're crucial. They're life saving devices. They're like life rafts,
Yeah.
or at this time we need these things in order to bring ourselves back, because we're living in the world, we're in the world
Mhm.
of form as well as in the world of formless. And when we're in the world of form, sometimes we can get jerked by something
Yeah.
something inside gets triggered, something outside triggers us, whatever it might be. I mean, it can just be things like we haven't eaten enough, or we're not getting enough water, but we can just get really pulled into aggravation. So I've been really leaning into my own spiritual practices and a lot as a way to bring me back home, to create the life. Part of it is we have to have a vision for what we want to be going towards. And so we need to think about the life that we want to be creating. What is the beautiful world that our hearts know is possible? We know what we don't want, but
Yeah.
what do we want? So in December, so I've been working with some different kinds of prayer practices, not necessarily things that are in the Magdalene Path book. I explore all kinds of different practices, although I lean into those practices there quite heavily. Um, and I was doing these prayer practices that were bringing me into these very powerful, very still states, but they weren't from my own lineage, and so it always felt like I was
Yeah.
not it
I know what
wasn't
you
it
mean.
wasn't it wasn't it wasn't fully on, it wasn't my path. They were good, they were excellent and awesome to use. I really wanted something that would be connected to the divine feminine, and ideally connected to Mary Magdalene. And I had prayed around and played around at different times with using the rosary, but I wasn't finding that. And then in December, I awoke with a new download about a new way to pray the rosary, but not to Mother Mary, to Mary Magdalene.
Hmm.
And that morning, I just received a full download about that prayer. And it's based on the Hail Mary. So for those of us that are raised Catholic and learned that, it's an easy practice to learn, because then you're just sort of substituting in a few words. And it's not that long. So even if you weren't raised Catholic or Christian, it's not pages long. It's just, I think it's 6 lines long. So I've been using that. I used it for quite a while before I even started sharing it with people. I found that it brought me into a place of deep stillness
Mhm.
and embodiment. Because for me, when I want meditation practices that not just sort of connect me to the higher realms, like sort of up and out here, but also in here. Like I want to
Yeah.
feel it infused in my body, which is part of why pilgrimages are so powerful and so important, is because we're having an embodied experience of our spiritual
Mhm.
life. And that, to me, I'm realizing is becoming more and more of a goal for me, is like, how do I live my spiritual life like a pilgrimage in my day to day?
Wow.
And when I started teaching, and then I started teaching the rosary, the Magdalene rosary, to women that I've invited into my circle, and they've been having powerful experiences too. So So yeah, we can make that link available so people can see more about that and what
Yeah.
that is. I've been very amazed, and I'm sort of the last person to, it's the last thing that I would have guessed would have happened. And
Sounds beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yet it's been a very, it's been a very, it's been very gratifying for me, because I found that, when I check in with people, it's really working for them too. So that's really been amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. We'll definitely make sure to share.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if folks are interested, and I know I am, and yeah, I've been meaning to ask about it for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Well, I'll be leading another one soon. I seem to do them every few months, so
great.
be having another one coming up soon, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I just want to say a huge thank you for you being here today, because on my own journey, I really want to also discover the histories, her stories of women her stories have not been told.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's so much also about Mary Magdalene now in the New Age world. And like we said, we need to bring also a lot of it into scholarly practice. And what can we physically touch? What can we kind of connect to on the physical realm, but then also have our spiritual connection and merge these, that we become the bridge and that we can serve what the bridge has to offer, as Mary Magdalene once did. So in closing, I'd actually like to share a poem I wrote, which is titled "The One," which I received and channeled at Montserrat, if you believe.
Awesome.
So I'll just be reading that, and please get comfortable and just take a deep breath. I am the living Grail, the chalice receptive to pure crystalline light, pouring into my skull like wine poured from jug to goblet, gnostic wisdom into my brain. It is I, the sacred one, the one you have been searching for, the storyteller, weaver, dreamer of the temples of old, the one who possesses many tongues and who is possessed by no one, the one who serves, the one who shares, the one who loves and who forgives, the one who walks the illuminated path, the Grail keeper and wisdom bearer, the eternal one, meaning she who never dies, the one who rebirths her holy gnosis, the shapeshifter, the one who walked with prophets, the one prophets sought counsel from, the one pointing a finger straight ahead into the heavens, beckoning, this way you must come. The one some of you still seek to this very day, hidden in plain sight, and some of you remain blissfully ignorant to what lies before your eyes. Take a deep breath and drink in the story of the living Grail. Those who seek will never find, but those with curious hearts and minds, rest assured the Grail will find you, summoning you longingly. Cosmic consciousness, liquid alchemy, shaking my cells awake, anointing and the anointed in holy ecstasy, the God one. So that was the one.
Wow. Thank you. That is so beautiful. And I could feel it. I mean, like full body goddess bumps. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Maxi. It's been so good to see you. Mwah.
It's been beautiful.
I wish we were hugging in person.
We have to hug energetically, and love blasts your way.
Yeah.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. And yeah, we'll put all the links down below. How to get in touch with us. We love you. Stay safe, and love and light. Bye.